All right, guys, welcome back to the Tough Love Podcast with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's guest, film star, Berto Colon. Berto, welcome to the show, brother.
Man, thank you so much. Again, thank you, bro.
So to get right into it, I think that the audience wants to hear how it started, the origination of where your career began, and in the spirit of the Tough Love Podcast, the adversity that went with it.
Yeah.
I think that is a key part. So I'll let you take the mic.
So I'll kind of like, I'll make a shorter resume of essentially what went on was that, being involved in sports kind of taught me early age the kind of commitment and desire that you had to have. And there were some tough lessons in the way, right? And essentially it was about sustaining the pain that comes in that moment and continuing to push forward. Because when you get out and you want to pursue this career, if you're lucky, you get some really clean kind of like, you get like nice little pathways that you can create for yourself, right?
Sure.
And along the way, there's just a lot of stuff that always pushes you down. And you could lose track of how well you're doing, how close you may be. So there's adversity the entire time. And I think what helps us get over the adversity, and we can then visualize adversity as like the process, the work, the hustle. You always hustle. And almost to keep a fine-tuned instrument, you always got to do it. This is a podcast. This is a podcast about fitness and maintaining a certain level. That's the training. That's Understood. The training. And then you hit a PR. And that moment comes when hopefully you can live on the income and on being an actor alone. And so before we get to that, it's knowing that, going into it, trying a bunch of different careers after college. I was a salesman, I was doing other things. And then I became a bartender early on, which gave me the livable income, like sustainable income that someone like me needed at the time, going in and out of the city, being, working nightlife, doing all the stuff. Like it had to be a certain level of income, and you make money doing that.
Yeah, great money.
So there's never not a moment because you're doing that has to have its place, but you really want this. You want the work.
The main goal.
Right. Being a bartender requires commitment too. And you may drain a little bit of the energy necessary to kind of just focus on one thing, which is exactly what happens.
I'm going to bring you back, but did you find yourself talking when you had a little bit more time? I mean, obviously in the nightclub life, it's tough, but were you ever in a setting where you could be talking to your guests or your customers, if you will, about being an aspiring actor, and then all of a sudden you were there?
Happens from time to time, but I always thought it was a little bit, let me be right about this. I felt that the stories like that in New York were plenty, and not out of arrogance, but out of respect for it. And almost as a way, like you don't want to jinx, maybe I'm superstitious in a way. I would hate to stain this formidable, like dream that I want to reach with any moments or any kind of like shades of any kind of like arrogance along the way. And so you keep that stuff private because there's a holiness to it, because it's real when you guard it and you don't use it as a pawn. Not that a simple introduction or conversation like that, which happened from time to time genuinely and organically, and they did happen, but it's not something that I focused on too much. And so when it did happen, I was kind of lost in the moment already. And I don't know if it happened a lot, if it happened a little, but it did happen from time to time. It was great. You get some information out of that. You meet like-minded individuals like you that are doing the same thing, and they may know that you're bartending because you have higher aspirations.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's very common.
So that's very common those real ones happen, I always felt me independently, I wanted to guard that a little bit and just be careful because, also I was learning my way around, and I didn't want to like mislead myself about that and like live on such a high from being able to present that in that world and like.
But you weren't there.
Yeah, not there yet.
Yeah,
there's more to go. Maybe I don't know. It's just.
How many years are we talking for your first role? And then let's go to the first role that then there could have been a big break in between, and then when all of a sudden it started to become, I'm doing it.
And for early career is doing soaps, commercials, the one line, the under fives, the co-star roles, the small, the just one episode deals, short, and you're doing that while maybe you're pursuing this. Your real job is unfortunately at night sometimes, and you got to ask for time off, and then you go do that. You live your dream where you want to be, maybe 5, 6, 7 days, a week, 2 weeks if you're lucky, right? And then you get your shifts back because it's the weekends that you're working. So you might have to miss one weekend in between to do this. So those are the little moments. You start to collect more of those. Mm-hmm. And then the people that are seeing you all the time for all that small stuff may say, hey, you know what? Like, it's time. Or I think he's ready. In their minds, they think you're not ready, even though you may feel like you're ready. And even though all you want is
you're ready a year ago.
It's like literally send me a different script from the one you sent me. But there's got to be a gravitas about you for them to like trust you with the work, even because there's already guys like you that,
come through the door.
That have come through the door. It's a normal human thing to do. Mm-hmm. You give respect to the people that have been there, hopefully, and it's going to be evident because they're going to be better actors. Plain and simple. So you collect enough of those, you move to the next level, and then the next level can get nice, like you can find yourself doing a really, like maybe a big movie, and that sustains you for a couple of years. You gain a little bit of momentum. You could find yourself doing some really amazing television, like 10, 12, 15, 16 episodes, depending on what you land, but yeah, steady work for a while. Or you can do, you find your way in. Your representation is improving all along the way. Multiple, maybe you just had a manager before, now you have manager and an agent and that's plus, badass, yeah. and a PR and maybe a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So now there's more people involved. And so it just continues to kind of snowball onto itself in a good way. So it snowballs kind of uphill, if you will.
Good, yeah.
And so that's the moment. These are all the little indications along the way. And for me, that was probably around 2016, 2017. So it was, that era of Orange and Netflix was, the whole thing was beginning. So I went through the phases. Let me just recap. I went through the phases of the, let's say, soaps, co-stars, smaller roles, and then you go into that next level, and then suddenly you're only an actor.
You're there. It's your career.
And that was probably 2017. I was still working. It felt like I was there, but I wasn't there yet. That's when you talked about the Colon job because I kind of pivoted from being a bartender to a more serious job that allowed me to use steady work. So I actually made less money when I first started working in the industry. I was like a liquor rep, liquor salesman. But my passion was for one brand only. Colon, plug. But I was still working and I was pursuing this thing. And then when it happened, I sort of spoke to my direct manager about it. And I said, look, I want to be honest with you. I don't want to leave. I'm so used to this way of life. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to be all right going forward. And also, in fairness to my commitment to the art and to you, I'm not going to be focused on that work anymore. Like, I'm working steady for 9 months. I am going to go out and build my fucking dream house. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And that's another, right?
Milestone.
Doop. Milestones accumulate, and then, hopefully you do it at an early age at an age where you can sustain it for like, say 15, 20, 25, 30 years, like that's the goal.
Yeah.
Or, whenever it happens, you just know it. And it's like, just what it means to you alone. It carries you a long way, man. It really helps you focus. The better part of you comes out when you can give it your whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not distracted, hustling to connect the dots and everything.
Even if you're a fucking great hustler and you know how to compartmentalize everything and you're like a fucking alpha dog, whatever.
It's still hard.
Still hard.
I could relate to that firsthand.
Yeah.
I'm across a couple different businesses and we're doing well. But I'll tell you this, it's like you get to a certain point and it just really starts burning you,
So that's when things, and that's when in other careers you take, kind of like the bull by the horns, as they say, and you, bless you.
Thank you.
You take the bull by the horns at that point from the standpoint of an incredible higher level of confidence too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the sureness of something happening comes with like all this fucking mind power behind it. That's just positive.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time with law of attraction.
Yeah.
Tell me this, when you started getting consistent, right? where does the heartache come from as an actor, right? Like for us in healthcare, we talk about insurance reimbursement, we talk about staffing, we talk about that. Where are the pains that come there?
The pains that, like the troubled times during that. Yeah, I can tell you it's something for me that stuck out from the beginning, even as you're coming up. It's the quiet moments, the in-between moments.
In between.
Like you get to a level where you can be in between, let's say 3, 4, 5 months, and you'll be fine. Maybe you'll be fine for a year or two. It doesn't matter. Like, or maybe you get to the point when you're a fucking brilliant, massive star where you take 6 months to prepare for something.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll do something else in a year or two. Or maybe if you're just an animal and continue to love the art the way you're supposed to,
yeah,
you just continue to make bangers.
Yeah.
First person that comes to mind, Tom Hardy. Like,
yeah,
he's an absolute animal in every sense of that word, in every way. And so, yeah, I mean, you have those moments. And for me, like I said, to tie back into the time, it was 2017, and I didn't want to leave. But I was fair.
Yeah.
Because I would get used to doing both. But no, that's the pain when you are in a situation where you're in between being creative.
Got it.
The security of finances, too, helps, whatever. But it's just the absence of work, essentially.
What do you think was the moment, or I should say this, what movie was the aha?
Man, there was a few. My father was a big influence with movies with us. All 3 kids, we grew up with our father in Puerto Rico, and he would show us, man. I go back to the days of early HBO.
Okay.
And some of the earlier movies, in Puerto Rico, you're watching kind of American TV. So, you get a filtered version of what kids got here. So it's a little bit limited. But for us, like Escape from New York, when that movie aired, do you remember Escape from New York with Kurt Russell?
I say that Kurt Russell, yeah.
Our father let us watch that. And there was some crazy shit in there.
Yeah.
Like crazy shit.
They dropped him off and he had to get out?
They dropped him off in a place where they want, like the entire city of
They anticipated him to die.
And for a Puerto Rican kid who's been hearing tales about what New York is for so many years,
you're like,
that movie leaves an imprint of what you imagine this fucking place
the Wizard
to
of
be.
Oz in the hood.
Yeah, like, so when you come here like, so as far as influence and how it's resonated from the moment that I saw it, Escape from New York, And then funniest shit I ever seen with him that I still laugh to this day is that Richard Pryor special, the Sunset Strip.
Oh, yeah.
He showed us that. Like that was heavy shit too. Like Richard Pryor for fucking
and he was ahead of his time.
There was a cleanness to what because we were children that we didn't understand. It didn't matter. It was just funny sounding, fuck and shit and motherfucker, all that. So it was amazing. It was like that is a very influential kind of picture to see when you're like, when you hold this fucking country in such high regard and like you want to come here and be part of this culture.
The experience.
It's mind opening. It's like, it's eye opening. Yeah, and your mind too. But yeah, those are the ones I remember. And then, HBO and all of that crazy MTV.
Sure.
Musically, like the influences of that. Like I was.
And we were kids. Keep in mind, what was there? MTV?
Yeah.
BET.
Yeah. Well, that's later even because I literally, John, I think I was watching the moment it aired, like when MTV
it just
started,
came out. Yeah.
Like as they launched the whole, 24 hours for the last
I want my MTV.
40 fucking years. That initial announcement, I was actually watching that.
Yeah. Our film crew wasn't even born yet.
No, they weren't. He's fucking zoned out right now. He doesn't even know what we're talking about.
But I'll say this, to your career.
Yeah.
What was the movie that you wanted to call home and be like, holy shit, I just signed my first major contract. This is amazing.
To be honest with you, the first time I worked as an actor, and it was a small NYU film, and I played a janitor with a crazy fucking accent. To this day, my wife thinks it's her favorite work of mine, which is interesting. It was so raw and funny, like barely any fucking training. And that felt like a fucking big budget movie. And to this day, it always has because it's your winning, dude. Like you can't always tie your wins to a financial fucking gain.
Got it.
your field might be a little different in that sense, but it isn't because you're artists in a way too.
100%. You know, obviously.
And the danger with us is that really corrupts your shit. Like, look what's happening with sports over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's driven by the dollar. Yeah.
And you can say what you want. You're always going to have your studs because, again, you're talking about a top % of people.
Yeah.
But there's a spirituality and the fucking essence of what.
It's gone now.
It's sort of.
You really see it in college, right? Thank God they don't have NIL in the pros.
And they're trying to fuck that up too with that goddamn portal, making these kids crazy on focusing on money only instead of going and build a relationship with someone for 4 fucking years.
Yeah, they get in, they don't win, they're in the portal.
They're out.
There was a girl in the championship game last year that blew my mind because it was like 2 minutes left in the game. She must have came out. They were going to lose. And, all the sports live people are like, so-and-so already has her name in the portal with NIL money, and she's going to Vandy, or another major. She already transferred as they were losing, planning on playing another team in the game.
What about the tournament this year? The fucking NCAA tournament, as those guys are dropping off of barely fucking winning a championship with a bunch of guys just now.
And they're moving. Yeah.
You don't think about staying and fucking trying again because you might get it the second time because you're that good that you're here already. No, I don't know. I want to secure. I don't know what that is, man. Like it's very hard.
We didn't grow up with that.
No, we didn't. And that is the antithesis of the fucking the commitment of the game, the commitment to other fucking people with you. Like that's what team sports are about.
The thing that was intriguing to me, and I'm going to go all the way back to, I think it was 2010. I was training an athlete and he got National Player of the Year. So it's 15 years ago. And we're walking up the stairs at the AT&T at the half. And it's like legit, like Jay Wright, Bill Self, like it's a Mike Brett. Like it is legitimately like the top 10, 25 coaches in the country on the staircase. And I guess all the coaches that were voting, especially those guys who are your big dogs, were like, we're talking to Jason and we're talking, I think Scotty Reynolds was on the stair, Cole Aldridge was on the stairs, Scotty Reynolds was in Villanova, and he was very similar to like a Brunson. And he got National Player of the Year as a junior. I don't think he had as great as, I'm sure he had a great senior year, but I mean, he was National Player of the Year as a junior, I believe. And the amazing part about it was, Jason had offers prior to go to bigger schools like on Michigan. Let's say it was Michigan, and he's at a Division II school. And where it's changed, I guarantee if it was 15 years later, they'd say, we're going to give you $1.5, $2 million, $3 million. He would have left. His answer, he's always been a Boy Scout, was, I love my coaches. I love the program. They stood by me, and I love my teammates. I'm not going anywhere.
The grit that would allow, like take inner city kids as an example, right? Like I grew up in an inner city. Like if you play high school ball in inner cities and you actually get a shot in New York City, like that is a big deal.
It's a huge thing. Yeah.
Okay. Like you're competing with guys in states like New Jersey, have these open areas. They feed off of the earth. City kids are fucking drinking Kool-Aid and like maybe skipping one meal or two in between. And they're just like they fucking fight out of hunger.
It's survival.
It's a different, so when you're that lucky and you get through that and then the next level is interested in you, like that's the biggest gift you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah. And the thing about it was I was blessed in my training career because we got to see so many amazing athletes and hearing the city kids that came from cities, they had sponsors and, which meant their gear, their food,
their fucking equipment was beautiful, all shiny every fucking week and no scuff marks from 3 games prior. Like
they didn't want to go home because there was no food or they lived with their grandma or whatever. And I was young at the time, but I was pretty taken back by it. I was like sad. And I'm like, these strangers are brokering them for, behind the scenes kickbacks. They don't want to go home because there's no food. There's, they're sharing a bed with 3 or 4 other kids in the family or whatever the case is. And I was blown away by it. So, people always say, what did you see? I said, it's funny. When you're playing for lunch, you're playing for dinner, the gifted, the uber elite, they'll play for trophies and chips. But when you're playing for clothes on your back, you're playing for food.
It's beautiful. And
that's another way of saying they're playing for survival.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm just playing not to be on the video game and mom said go play at 3:00, who do you want to not square up against? The kid that's playing that's going to go jump on his video game with a walk-in closet?
Yeah.
Or the kid that says, well, I played for Coach Joe. I'm going to get 3 meals today. And I'm playing my ass off because I don't want to not be playing for Coach Joe next weekend. You know, it's wild. But
to me, just to touch on that a little bit, I don't want to speak about that level of like hunger because I sometimes feel it's unfair because I was not. Those were my best. To this day, they're my best friends. So I don't ever want to take full credit for that experience, but from what I witnessed outside of that.
Yeah.
And the state of mind that I'm in as a witness to that, knowing that I have that stuff, I almost felt guilty about the stuff that I had. And I'm probably telling you that it was very modest shit. But in comparison to what some of these guys had, right?
Agreed.
And I almost learned to the gift is what I'm saying, is that the gift means the same for a guy like me, for like one of those guys. And that's the brotherhood. That's the understanding that you have that goes beyond like social status and anything else. Like you grind it out with brothers, like you grind it out with brothers.
Jumping back in, I was looking at the Penguin, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, who are you lined up with as far as the actor? Who was that?
So the Penguin was crazy because I'm a huge Colin Farrell fan.
Uh-huh.
Like one of the things I'm grateful for is that towards the end of that shoot, I was able to approach him after, and I was in front of him the whole time I got to work on that show was with him. I wasn't. All of my episodes, all my work is with him. And 3 or 4 episodes, I forget what it was. And it was a fucking gift, dude, because to me, that guy was like one of my top dogs coming up. And the last day of filming for me, like it was actually very intense scene where I'm holding a gun and inside of his fucking mouth. Like that was like when he's being tortured.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that, obviously we had like a whole day of like working intense like that. And I'm like looking at him and he's fucking pointing at me and I'm just having these played out moments with a wild man. Like he's a wild person.
Got it.
Beautiful way. And I was able to just simply say, man, listen, I know a lot of people say this shit to you, but this is a big deal for me. I've been a fan since Tigerland. It's one of the first films he did. I think he was like a teenager.
Yeah.
It's insane, dude. That dude's energy and there were some heavy guys in that fucking, like heavy guys, but he stood out to me.
Impressive.
And to come back and be able to tap on that and just say, hey, by the way, his answer was, I appreciate you saying, like he meant it from the heart. Like he was like, I appreciate you saying that. I really appreciate what, like that is artist to artist. It felt like artist to artist, if I could say that.
Which is good. Yeah. I mean,
dude, it's fucking brilliant. It's a great moment.
The funny thing about it is it's probably always humbling because you do come across what set was Colin the biggest actor you had worked with, like on set?
No, I mean, I've been with, names are going to get stuck in my head now, but, I've been with others.
Mm-hmm.
Major, like established names, like, oh my God.
How about this? Forget the names.
Yeah.
Talk about
I did a show called Kings.
Uh-huh.
God, I should recall his. It's terrible. I'm so bad with names sometimes. But the other person, other than Colin, was Ian McShane. And it was talking about one of the first. I was pretty much a glorified extra, but they took a liking to me in the beginning, just to kind of like, whatever. I had a little bit of commitment because I had to be part of his team. And I was just fucking attentive to this man. Like, I'm his security team. And then one of my better friends in life that anyway, being around Ian did something to me. So they kept me around. And I just watched that guy fucking work. I got to see that guy. I don't know if you've ever seen the series. I just had one season, but to see Ian McShane, dude, go off. Like, what was the series that he did? Wood something. God, I'm terrible with the Westwood.
Okay.
What was it? Westwood? Was it Westwood? Or
I'm
something?
not. Yeah.
Anyway, when the man works, it's
powerful.
Sexy Beast. Go back and watch Sexy Beast.
Okay.
Watch him in that. Like he's incredible. And so that was a big deal to watch. And dude, the highs and the lows of a number one on the call sheet has to do for, 10, 12 episodes. Like there's highs and lows. When it's your show, it's your show. So you see them.
You're looking at it going, oh boy.
No. And so the full spectrum of emotions, like there'll be the bad days, there'll be the great days, there'll be the middle days. And those guys have to be always firing. And so whatever needs to happen, we'll be ready. And, we're humans. People sometimes make mistakes and those guys have to take control.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me this. I'm loving everything about this. So again, there's so much into it. There's so much layering and preparation. When you're going on a set and there are these big guns, do you find yourself, or, and again, you're getting up there now, as far as like you're starting to become a big gun.
Yeah.
And the reality, do you do some background and get familiar with their work?
You know of them already. If you're a student of the craft, you're familiar.
Got it. Okay.
And
so it's not like sports where I'm watching with this wide out, looking at the routes. You're kind of already familiar. And
man, it's like they're your teammates. A good analogy would be like, oh, he's on my team. Mm-hmm. He's just a starter right now, and I got to earn my way. And so that presentation, that first time you go up against that's what they are.
Yeah.
Even if the text says your adversaries, that's. You go make him look great. He's going to make you look great. You're playing together.
Got it.
It's an ensemble.
Synergistic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to segue into the way that I've gotten over that is to just keep that mindset and none of this like celebrity stuff or we're here to work together and it's a privilege to do it with, it's a privilege to be a sophomore and go in on the fucking third quarter of a game that we're winning by maybe 10 or 12 points and being trusted to kind of keep the lead with the fucking seniors on your team. They're trusting you now.
To keep it. And that's
don't drop the fucking ball in front of me
because it ain't going to be fun. The superstars.
Yeah.
We expect you to not drop a stride.
Yeah. From an all love, all collaborative, stern and direct approach. Like, no love lost if you don't have it today or tomorrow, whenever. But unfortunately, this moves at this speed and good riddance or try it again next time. You were almost there. Try it again next time.
Where you're at now as an actor and the level you're at. And again, you're obviously embracing a lot of success and that's awesome. And you're experiencing, a lot of new things. How do you go about, because I just see about Entourage and I'm laughing, like watching those guys, how you pick a role, like, tell me how like role acquisition happens, like if it's the right fit, the right energy, the right work.
So there's a fine line between that because there's a stage in your career where you're pretty much going out for everything.
Got it.
And that's the attitude you keep. And then you established yourself as someone that could be trusted when you trust yourself, the confidence is there. You start firing all those essential elements of the process and the craft that propel you forward in a different space, higher level, top level shit. Mm-hmm. Scene. That's a scene. That's the work becomes that clear. And you can do it at any fucking moment, right?
And it's just on.
Right. So you have to go in with that mind. That's the mindset. Fake it till you make it, right? All to say, you fake it till you make it. Some people I don't like that much, but yeah, it's like, you're just ready.
Got it. What's amazing to me is, and we talked about this earlier about like actors that are athletes, right? Mm-hmm. How talented you guys are. How, in
a specific field. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, talking about, a guy that can sit there and throw hands a little bit, physical fitness, like that's his doing own stunts. And then all of a sudden switches a role and he's singing and he's the voice of a Disney character. And you're like, by the way, this dude's got a crazy range. Like he was just getting his ass kicked by Jet Li and now he's singing with,
Yeah, he's up there. Honestly, like that muscle of true acting and that comfort level there's an easy movement as well, like to tie it to the physicality of like some guys who are there. And that's, speaking mainly about those people, but the real mastery of that craft comes from a much bigger mental aspect, from a much more livable experience aspect, like understanding, honest to God, like no exaggeration, no like making yourself look like you have an understanding of these experiences, lived experiences, and you apply that to subtext and text and that's the key, man. Like that's what you got to kind of focus on.
Okay.
That's what, and so to tie it back to what we were talking about before, you know, man, I think you envision all that stuff happening already. So you show up kind of knowing.
Prepared. It's going to go.
Yeah. And I like to always think that there's a dose of humility that you have to do that, because every day you're kind of presenting yourself to people, and personality matters. And not only personality, but your true.
What you are.
Yeah. And you can tell who's fucking fake or not. Like we all have, some of us. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but people show you who they are.
Agreed. And the thing about it is, you know, it was funny. I was around some circles of people, and they talk about like some actors you don't see anymore, and you know, whether unfortunately got pulled into stardom with alcoholism or this or that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of pitfalls, and that's what happens. Yeah,
you know, and the reality, I think that for you, your climb's been impressive because, you know, high school, collegiate athlete, and then, you know, you were in service and hospitality. And you get to see those pitfalls of, you know, the clients come in, and then they go from being on top of the bar dancing to laying underneath the bar in the
or
schmutz.
Working or being one of the servers in that environment and looking at people that you aspire to kind of be like one day, living like that. That's one good analogy, I think.
Yeah,
because that's a very humbling job too. But yeah, exactly like what you're saying.
I was blown away when I was in the nightclub business. You know, when we were running events, and I won't say names because you're a big enough celebrity.
There's no point.
But I was intrigued by like saying, wow, you're so big. I can't believe you're cracked out and slumped over like that, and your bodyguards are keeping you up, and my bodyguards are squared off to him. And then they realize, oh, that's so-and-so superstar singer. I'm like, oh, okay. You know,
wow.
And, but it is intriguing. I mean, you would think, you know, like, I guess, you know, it's funny. You see with the pro athletes, and you always say like, you know, a lot of coaches are like, you know, we felt terrible. This athlete couldn't behave himself. And I'm thinking to myself, if I knew I was a bad person, right? I knew I couldn't control myself, but I'm making that much money. Can't we get professional babysitters? Like legit, like they could look normal. It could be like you walking next to me and be like, you know, pay attention, B. You know, I'm gonna start drinking. So the minute I'm out, we take it out and make it look like, hey, we got to get to another event.
They do, you know, and in a lot of cases, a lot of people don't understand the relationship between managers and agents. And when you're doing, and you have other people that assist, people with assistants, and there's a way of kind of doing that.
Yeah, I was gonna
when
say,
you get to a level.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard some story yesterday, it was insane, you know, like, but the insane story was that essentially Brad Pitt was somewhere, and the reaction that he had when he saw someone faint next to him, like the person that witnessed that, not being at his level, like was blown away at the fact that he was simply, it's all right, so I got this. Held her, grabbed her, settled her down, and then kept going about his business. Like there was no breaking the moment. Like it was normal to see someone faint in front of another human being.
He just was good, solid.
And super humble man, from what I gather, you know what I mean? But still caring enough. Like there's pieces of shit out there who would have probably been like, you know,
and
like,
let her fall.
Yeah. That's a human.
That's
and
quality.
he's well aware what
was about to happen.
but also what he has created about him. Like the aura, as kids call it now, like, oh, this person has. The aura that you create when it's like you hit people with that fucking energy and they fucking faint somehow. Yeah. That's crazy. And he's used to that.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like that's.
I saw something, you'll appreciate this because we were talking about MTV earlier. I saw Mike, the Situation Sorrentino was working out in the gym today. And these young kids, they were probably teenagers, and they're looking, and it's like us talking, and all of a sudden you see the kid go like this and look over, and the kid goes, are you the Situation? And it was, and I'm lifting sets, and I look over, I'm talking to my boy Omar, and I'm like, watch this, how cute this is, right? And I have to tell you, honestly, like he's been through it, and he embraced it, and it's like where he is now, where he's like opening rehab centers and doing all those kind of things. And I'm like, I think that's freaking amazing. I think that's awesome. Like, hey, listen, you have a voice.
Yeah.
You are receiving.
You have a platform.
You have a platform, and you're out there. And I'll tell you, you know, like where I've seen both sides of this, where a celebrity says you're this and that, and watch them be like, I don't talk to you. I had happened to myself with a country star. I was in an elevator. Before I even looked, I was like, she goes, I don't talk to strangers. I was like, and I laughed because I think I had a couple of me. I was like, your mama taught you well. She got mad when it was, you know.
Dude, I mean, I'm out with my family, and I know that you reach a point in time where the kind of like the tolerance kind of wears off. Yeah. I'm always a humble person, and you know, to even normal people, I just wish that more people thought about it like this. Like, normal person walks around in their daily lives and they're well known in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
Do you want the person from the neighborhood next door to fucking stop you all the time? And like your gratitude is amazing because you have that. But if a normal person did that, I bet you a normal person would probably, like, maybe they're having private moments. Maybe they just want to live. Like, there's all these things that, we want to do. And I get that. I sometimes feel that tension in my family.
Yeah.
And I honor that. Like, there's no bullshit there. Like, I understand that feeling. So, but there's a way.
Yes.
There's a real, you don't have to disconnect from and not always, but you don't have to break the human connection. You could actually bring it closer to just simply say another time. I
didn't even think about that, but I think that's probably learned, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like in other words, when you guys jump in the car.
Well, it happens so much that it becomes overwhelming.
But the thing is probably, it's almost, whether you're a political figure or an actor or a sports celebrity or whatever, anybody, a person of interest, you will, of a national or global interest.
Politicians, public person, any public person.
When you draw attention, I think the big thing is how you discuss it among your tribe, right? When you get in the car, like, guys, mom is, she's the governor, or she's this or she's that. Like, this is a thing. And you know what? We have to be super accepting of it. When we're out in public and we're a public figure, you behave in a well-mannered public way. You got to put it up, right? You got to,
consider it.
Yeah.
No, not some of that stuff could be very unauthentic.
Yeah.
But if you're honest, you honor. Like, I grew up with a couple of, like, you wouldn't know, like, we've all had that humble. I found out a couple of people in the Bronx were like, state assembly. But I went to high school with that kid's father. Like, his father, that guy's son, that assemblyman's son, Ruben
Patterson?
No, Ruben Rivera or Rodriguez. I'm sorry, Ruben, but Ruben's dad was an assembly person in the Bronx. And I went to high school with his kid. And Ruben always had a demeanor about him. Like, he was a statesperson. He was a elegant person.
Yeah.
Did his thing. Good looking dude. Puerto Rican. But he knew what he represented, and he was still elegant to this day.
Yeah.
Like, there's a decorum that guy has. Because he's not going to shit on his father's profession.
Yeah. His name.
That's important.
Without a doubt.
So that's reverence and respect, which is sometimes something that we won't get into that here. But, it's lacking. It's sorely fucking lacking. We could just be honest.
Yeah,
reverence. It's like a fucking pride word. Like, you say that word and some people get so like, what do you mean? Like, I have to be subservient to them? No. It's just you fucking hold their space. Like, you want people to hold yours.
Yes.
Isn't that the fucking case?
Yeah.
That's what we want. What's so big deal about giving it to someone who's like 27 years ahead of you?
Yeah.
And they rightfully deserve it. Just reverence.
Give them what
Yeah. And they're probably going to be doing that. They're probably going to be so reciprocal that they're already giving that to you for free. Like, more than likely, you just have to be a humble recipient of good grace, so to speak.
I'm always amazed when I've come in interaction with people, and probably one of my favorite stories of running into a celebrity that crossed over from his college to his pro career, and then as an announcer, was I was down at Disney, and I'd get up so I didn't interfere with the kids' day. So I was getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the gym. And I see this mountain of a human. I thought he was on stilts. It was Bill Walton, right? And his knees were so arthritic that he was like crippled going across the Disney property. But he was so big that his knees were like up at the top of the hedgerow. So I'm like, what are one of the talent? Like, what is the act doing out? But he's like far, like across this yard, like halfway into the nursery. And he's getting closer. He's not shrinking. And I'm like, oh, those are his legs. I'm like, oh my. And then I see him and I'm like, and the funny thing about it was, as soon as like how we locked eyes, he's like, yes, son, I'm Bill Walton. And
he understood what
the best was. I'm on the phone with one of my basketball coaches talking, who's up, right? And I'm like, Coach, yeah, Doc. Hold on, I got to go. Bill Walton's right in front of me. He's like, walk at me quick. He goes, I go, how, I'm healthcare. He goes, Doc? Yeah, talk to me. And he goes, my knees are terrible. He goes, the only thing I can do at this stage in my life is ride a bike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you walk super fast. He goes, well, if I stop, I probably won't start again. So we're not stopping. I got to be on set in a little bit, blah, blah, blah. And you know what's funny? It was like I was a nephew or like a family member or somebody's son-in-law or whatever. Like he was so polite and could easily been like threw the stiff arm out.
Well,
and I guess he was probably also intrigued because I was looking at him like how he was walking. I'm like,
probably recognized the appreciation for what he's done was in your eyes.
Yeah, without that, the body work was crazy.
Like it's clear, and that's a great form of like that's an honor to have that from people.
Yeah, without
so
doubt.
He definitely gave you the space and treated you.
It was neat.
It was just neat. And for him was so simple because he was just being a human being. I take it like that. They're in their elements, you know what I mean?
And it's funny, when I came back, I probably shared that story for a year with my kids, and I made them go look to see the fact that he was, played for one of the, all-time greatest basketball coaches for that
dynasty,
father figure.
And the dynasty team too, amazing team.
He played with these amazing people, had a great career, had a son that was a pro. I mean, check all the boxes, and it was amazing. Back to you and your career. We talk about what is a fire in somebody that keeps them going and burnout and whatnot. And you said you had a pretty busy run, right? You were acting for almost 3.5 years straight. What do you do to maintain that? Like the whole, work-life balance. Like it's great to make money, but how do you balance when you're, remote and filming away from your family for an extended period of time? Gym, food, everything that you love. How do we balance that?
I'll be honest, man. There's a kind of a masochist way to approach that. It's just a disciplined approach and a commitment. Because all those elements of staying focused. When my father always said to me that the greatest measure of a man is to watch how he behaves when he's not at the top. When the fucking money and the fame, when it isn't there, how is that person in any field? How is that person managing themselves when they're not where they want to be?
Yeah.
And so it's a balanced practice of like understanding that this is part of the process. These 6 months that I'm going through here, I'm going to review my work, take stock of my life, be important to the people around me, pay attention to my family. Could be challenging.
Get in great shape.
Stay in great shape. And sometimes it could be challenging. I'm a human being, man. It becomes stressful. And it's unfortunate, but we put that on people we love sometimes. It is a pitfall. Like any other pitfalls of this business, it is a pitfall that, may happen. So you got to be careful with that. And you have to be a really humble person through all those moments, but also understand that that's part of this is part of it.
Yeah.
Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get behind. Don't get caught in the struggle is one of the things that one of my best friends, Mark Rodriguez, and I use. I guess he gives me that original credit for that quote, but just don't get caught up in the struggle. Because no matter what, you're in it. And you've already struggled. So what's the fear of tomorrow that it's like today? Still a gift. Because today was better than yesterday, right?
100%.
Sound like fucking Socrates over here, but it really just...
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
The biggest thing that I see with all the uber successful people that I have on the podcast is their ability to circle back and their sense of atonement, if you will, when they do take advantage of a loved one or something like that. Because again, the circumstances become overwhelming, right? Like you can't control if you have 10 jobs or one job. The reality is your budget, and when you're like, hey, not the money's getting thin, but because your whole life you've been a worker in all aspects, sports, your body, recovery, with injuries, your acting skill.
Yeah.
And, I have to imagine that that's something that, you also have to work on is like humility, if you will, right? Because it's like you're humming and then all of a sudden it stops. And we talked about the budget. We're saying, listen, you're making $25,000 a week and then you're going, you could have money, but you don't want to be a savage because it's like being a professional athlete. You play in the pros for 6 years. It's got to last for a lifetime.
That's a great analogy because that's a finite moment. That's going to happen to all athletes. So that approach as an actor means that you're doing that constantly. Mm-hmm. You treat every job
like it's your last,
like it's finite.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a level where you understand you're going to keep working. And of course, but ideally,
but that's a fantastic...
The structure, if you will. This is just fundamental structure. every fucking game is your last.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that the mentality? We strive for PRs.
Do you remember, and you probably were just really starting to act, but do you remember when Saturday, I think it was Saturday Night Live or one of the late night, I was in a big, at that time the kids were little, so I know I was probably crashing, going to bed early. But do you remember when Tom Hanks had a banger coming out, it seemed like every 3 minutes? And I think it was either Adam Sandler or somebody literally saying like, dude, you're just laying down monsters, it was like Saving Private Ryan, blah, blah, and I don't know to list them all out, but
massive.
Like he literally went on like a tear for like a span of time that it was like one saga after the next.
Yeah, and someone that doesn't get talked about enough, I think, man.
And I was saying, I'm like,
he's the Steven Spielberg, that's his muse.
And listen,
and that's and so to be in a moment in your life when that's the guy you're working for, and how many of those films, like maybe 6?
Now I'm going to date myself here, but we're the same age. And he started with that funny TV show with him and the other guy that they were like roommates in the city, broke, struggling, whatever.
Yeah, I forget the name, but yeah, Robin Williams, same thing.
Mork and Mindy or whatever the hell.
Morgan and Mindy, yeah.
And I will say this, the one thing that I'm intrigued with, and I see it all the time, is, and I think about it all the time, is I would say, God, I always look back at Sean Connery and I feel like if I met him, he'd act the way he was in a show. I feel like that's the way he carries himself. But do you find that some of these characters that you become, you like and embody some of them, and you're like, you know what? I like that part. I could kind of, because I think that that's actually a successful trait in a lot of people, is that you'd memorize Derek Jeter's swing or whatever, like to kind of emulate successful parts of people.
So the truth and actory answer is that every character you play, there's a singular essence that's going to be brought to that character by you. It's sort of a reversal of what you just said. Your true instrument will reveal its true essence in every character. It doesn't mean that you're the same. Doesn't mean that you're playing the same. It's just the essence of what that instrument is will be clear. The shape on the outside, we could alter, whatever. And some people, some skillful guys have the ability to sort of become almost chameleons, but there's still an essence about them that comes through. And that's what that actory answer is. So you're not those characters, but you lend yourself to all those characters. So there's an essence in them. Mm-hmm. And that's the space you want to live in anyway. I don't think you ever want to jump out of that essence of who you are just because you got to live a fantasy life, if you will. Mm-hmm. How do you know? That's not a true and tested life. You prepare for it as though it is, but you don't really know because there are unknowns and so you can become, that's a crazy leap of faith for a human being to do, mm-hmm. to get so caught up in something and just like completely want to become that after you spent fucking 30 years building the one you are. Suddenly you're going to sell it out because you found something new in 6 months. I don't know.
People do it. But
people do it because it might reveal something to them about who they, but at the end of the day, they're just becoming what their essence is, influenced by this.
Yeah, the chatter, noise.
The noise of internal noise, because it's the desire to be something else or reach higher or whatever it is.
So with regards to managing the negative talk.
Yeah, the chatter, as they call it.
Yeah, the chatter. I mean, right? So you have it in, I imagine you have it in everything, right? Like I know, like for me, I'm pretty judgmental, right? Or I say critical. I don't think judgmental. I think that everybody's got a talent. And like I know I went to go see a Hugh Jackman show. And his co-star, and what do I know, right? She could have been ridiculously talented. I didn't think they matched, right? We're on Broadway, I'm watching it, and he's built like us, just, beautiful hair, this and that. And I thought she was more of a frail figure and, even in her personality. And here he's dancing across the stage. And the funny thing about it was his personality was so freaking big that he'd become Hugh Jackman and not the character on stage when something was funny and start laughing. And then I'm like, that's a fucking skill. He just went right back into the role. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder like how, I guess, like Siskel and Ebert, whatever their names are, these critics, they start chirping about it because they don't like it. But like when you see the Rotten Apples or this or that or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, how do you manage that to stay positive? Because like, I mean, you're upbeat, you know what I mean? But we talk about not working.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like in sports, we go to the practice field and we do reps to get better so it doesn't happen again, right? What do you do as an actor?
So the simplest way I can put it is when you were on, do we want the sport analogy first? No, let me give you the real artist analogy first. You know what the fourth wall is, right? In front of the stage, there's a fourth wall with an audience, but they're not there. That's chatter.
Got it.
They're being entertained. They're an audience. And yes, that does feed an energy in the place. And it's not like you're like some fucking robot that doesn't understand that's there. But you treat that with a level of respect and you don't play to that, is what I'm trying to say.
Understood. And that's been around since Shakespeare,
so that
whatever.
level of commitment to being present here doesn't mean I can listen to all the chatter out there. I'm engaged with what's happening here. Mm-hmm. And that's the same element you got to take with you from a performance standpoint and kind of go backwards to a practice day-to-day stuff.
Got it.
You got to be honest about that.
Well,
you can't let that shit. Yes, I've seen things that are crazy. I've seen things like lights or candles go out on stage where the scene depends on the candle being lit. And I've seen the actors, I can name names, but I won't. I mean, and they came out of it and went right back in. Someone came out from the back, lit up the candle, and then went right back to work. Huh. And I was sitting there with my wife, and that was like one of the most like it was a standout. Aside from the performance, it was one of those moments where the audience was like, holy shit, like she thought it had been staged.
It was so good.
Well, she thought that was part of the act.
Which is great.
Which is fantastic. But I was like, no, sweetie, that was actually them having to start and stop, but it was seamless because they were back in it again. And so it just threw her fucking whole world into like a,
yeah.
She got to see them both, so you get what I'm saying. That's what you do with chatter. So you learn from working that all that exterior shit is not, first of all, not helpful.
Yes. And my guys can appreciate it. And my whole set here is from the city.
No one needs that.
There's nothing like the Big Apple and press. There's nothing like the fact that when you're winning in the city, you're a demigod. But if you're losing in the city, they will bury you under it. Yeah. The writers are ruthless. You know what I mean? And
the whole world is. And social media now, like everybody's a fucking critic. Everybody's a fucking expert.
Yeah.
Dude, it deteriorates minds. And that's why we won't get into it, but what's doing to young people, like...
Yeah, they don't think anymore. I see my son and my daughter and how they acquire. Now, I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. Like we had to go to a library, right? And track down the data and information and cite it. Mm-hmm. Page, author, and follow this system. And now I was messing with you, right? And you talk about layering and I loved what you did to me, right? So I acquired that information and 3 times I edited it.
Yeah.
3 times. And I loved it because I'm like, you know what? How dare me?
It's close to the real thing, but
Listen, watch. That I gave your career to you in 4 seconds. And you said something really funny that I was like, you know what? I get that. Because you had I rolled through the book and I read the summary. But you were like, there's way more content to this.
Yeah.
And there's way more meaning to the pages that were written that I lived as the actor and in my life.
Yeah.
And so I know that to me, it made me a better interviewer because I was like, you know what? That means a lot to me. That I was like, oh, yeah, dog.
Before I lose it, it's kind of condensing the experiences and finding, and when you're moving forward, obviously those condensed experiences have to have a basis, a beginning. But the meat of it is, the meat of it tends to be towards the end of that story or towards the more recent time. So it just has different gravitas to, and then that's what you kind of, again, momentum, and it's levels, it's layers, if you will, it's momentum, and you're doing more.
So let's, I can't say I'm a movie buff because I'm definitely more of an action Taken or John Wick or I definitely tend to lead towards blockbusters. But again, I have a feeling we're going to be stuck with each other for a long time. If you had your role, right? And all of a sudden it's like Berto Colon and you're rocking and it was a reoccurring superstar role, what would it be? According to you, you're writing it. You're writing the book. You're writing the playbook.
I think we touched on this before about selecting roles and wanting to do roles. And I think, you know,
listen up, world. You're hearing it right now. So the next producer paying attention, get it right.
I think we all strive to serve a great service to a story, like be in service of an amazing story, and to be a large piece of that pie that tells that story.
Sure.
So,
but what would it be? I'm not letting you. I'm not letting you off.
Type of role, like a doctor or a fucking lawyer.
I'm not letting you off the hook. I mean, like, in other words, you know, if it was Sylvester Stallone, he'd say, I'm going to frame myself in this one. If I'm Brad Pitt, I'm framing myself in this one. If I'm Colin Farrell, who you had the pleasure of working with, I'd frame myself in this one. Berto Colon, what would you frame yourself in?
So obviously the bulk of that pie would be mine. I want to carry the story and be the biggest service to that story.
Sure.
Like a specific walk of life, perhaps a teacher. Let's say I'm a very influential teacher.
Okay.
Let's say I could run a series for 2-3 years of me being a teacher in a 4-year high school. And what I teach like in the beginning of that story and how I teach at the end of high school with the same people.
Are we talking like a Remember the Titans, or are we talking like Dead Poet Society?
It could be, let's say Remember the Titans, but it's a story about like that whole trajectory, the beginning and middle and an end of a story that's being an influential character, first of all, like a teacher. Whether it's a comedy or a dramedy or whatever it is. And just seeing that character shape things, but that's the focal point of all of these things that it's creating. It's shaping 27 different characters while our focus as the audience or the story being about this person kind of going through that kind of like change and evolution himself.
And how they interact with 27 different personalities.
Right, let's say. Something like that. In a medical field would be like, let's say a resident that kind of travels or the trajectory of a resident's doctor in a hospital to watch that happen.
Yeah, where they started
from the Crazy Nights, the Guardian, whatever you call them. You work the guardship because you're in fucking trauma, like from 2 a.m. to from like 12 to like fucking 8 a.m. and you're catching everything.
Yeah, the number 1 trauma hospital in the boroughs.
Oh my God, the Bronx, like Jacoby, where I ended up a couple of times. Jesus. So yeah, that would be those are roles or those things are. I mean, the stuff that we watch as Americans has. Law and Order, medicine, right?
Yeah.
It's some kind of law, right? That's our entertainment. It's like these big...
Violation of it or upholding
either or,
right?
From whatever, I did one of the first series I did was Person of Interest, and it was so interesting to me because that guy was vicious, violent, and the character basically was in charge of... I forget the name of the movie, but they needed to figure out, they were on to the people that were about to commit crimes, and they were persons of interest prior to them committing the crime. Kind of like the
Minority Report.
Minority. And it was a
little creepy where they're like, we know you're about to do this.
But it was such a good series, man. It was an honor to work on it,
I'll tell you, I've been blessed and in my career to be able to work with so many amazing people, and a lot of my good friends, hope they're listening, in law enforcement. There was a crazy one. There was a Latino drug gang out of Lakewood. And technology now is so wild that they were tracing the phones. And I think they linked up with the FBI or something to use their technology. And they found the guy because they found the bodies. And then they found the guys that did it by somehow in the phones. And they were able to go to the calls of one of them night up, and then trace it to it, like the Minority Report, and then figure it out wherever else they were going, and got all of them.
Yeah, and
it was amazing to me because I'm like, where we are in technology, that kind of stuff. I'm like, you can't hide soon. It's like when you're talking to your phone, and all of a sudden the knee sleeves pop up, or the deodorant, or the clothing you like, and I'm like, everything's listening now.
Yeah, Yeah. No, it was. It's interesting when you bring technology into that space, because it really shines a light of where we were heading the whole time.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look back on that now. That's the first thought that came to mind. It's kind of predicting the future kind of shit. Like
a little scary.
We could actually catch you no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an element to like understanding what criminality is, that there's an allure to understanding that these motherfuckers could get away with it.
Yeah.
The allure is understanding or how fucking close sometimes these atrocities are, that they can get away with it.
Yeah. Well,
never to be discovered, or the truth never to be found. Like that's insane. Yeah. That's scary.
You know, you look at, well, it's really scary because you look at some of these modern celebrity people that are in the court systems right now. And if they were just some regular school teacher or doctor, this and that, when they did this, it'd already be done. They'd be in jail. Right. Yeah.
And I don't know why, because someone has a high profile needs to be this way. Like, we're feeding that fire, and you know, my humble opinion. Right. But yeah, it's
fucking scary. You know what it is? Unfortunately, it's a direct correlation. Wealth makes the law elastic. You know, and I hate to say it, you see it way too many times. Look at pro athletes. I mean, look how many times they get probation, they get a slap on the hand, and you know, where if they were just a regular kid, you know, we had a situation. Your kids were probably babies. We had a situation where they were all best friends, and I think they were athletes at Monmouth University, and they had left and crashed a car. And the one of the actually, it was either Monmouth or Howell High School.
Yeah,
and one of the kids died. And my understanding during that time, this was pre-injury. So I'm Doc, the trainer, but these kids were definitely football, because it was kids I didn't come in and interact with. But the girls knew them, basketball players, siblings, etc. And they were best friends, you know, and it was almost like the Todd Healy story or whatever it was years ago, the hockey player that killed his soon-to-be brother-in-law, and he killed his sisters by mistake. They're driving a Ferrari and they're playing for the Atlanta pro team, and they crashed a Ferrari and the brother died, and, you know, but the kid went to jail. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying to myself, you know, how miserable is that for that poor child? He's only 18, 19 years old, kills his best friend, right? Yeah. And he's got to live with it the rest of life, and got to think about it in jail. And it was just how many times they've done it, and they should have never gotten the car in the first place. Yeah. But now you got to live with it the rest of your life, and you got to live with the fact that it's on your record that you went to jail for, I don't even know, probably manslaughter, or, you know.
I'm telling you that part of the empathetic thing about human beings is that maybe controversial to say, but let's say you love somebody like that. Let's say you love the person that's going through that tragedy, and I'm going to put myself in the space of not the victim, but not that I don't want to do that. I do want to do that, but it's also the people that truly love those people, that watch them destroy themselves, what it does to them. Yeah. I just want to be fair to both sides, because those people, after all, were not the criminals. They were as close, you can say, to the criminal as their victim, because they probably know them. Yeah. Love them.
And then lost them.
And they lost them.
Yeah.
And that's what I think about, because I like to think about, you know, kind of like my teacher, my acting coach always said, that you have to have an opinion on a lot of things in your life. Not that you can be over opinionated, but you have to have one. Yeah. A simple opinion about, you got to take an interest in everything.
Don't take a stand in everything, but you have a thought about everything.
And so from that angle, that's what I understood that to be. Like, part of the empathetic nature of human beings, you got to do that, because they, you know, it's the same thing. Both sides count.
Love it. As we start to get towards the end of the podcast today, let's talk about the future of Berto Colon. Yeah. You know, what's right now in the next 5 years? And I'm sure there's always that vision board, because obviously you're a powerfully, you know, motivational person. You drive yourself. What do you envision the next 5 years looking like in your career?
Well, I mean, I'm coming off an amazing run, so I'm still in the hunt. Obviously, that's always the case. But I'm in a place now where we were talking about that level of comfort, and where you can just be one thing. I have some projects in development that I want to try and get produced. Obviously, that should be a goal that we should all have. And in a very honest, you know, like just present, you have to present these things to people that can help you get it done. And there's a confidence level that you have to have when you present that, because you believe in this shit. Like, and you believe in it from a standpoint of the lived experience in the business that you've had to say, oh, this has wings and this could run. This is running already. Let's go do this. And that's where I'm at. And I'm lucky enough to be kind of in the beginning process of a similar project for Luna Lauren Velez and her sister Lorraine Velez are finishing the deal on an independent film that they're doing, and I'm going to take part in that.
Nice.
First, that'll be hopefully maybe July or September. I'm not sure, but you know how soon.
Very soon.
And then the next one is this. Nick Falco is the writer. He's somebody that I met in the business as a Kettle One employee and working. He was one of the managers at the brewery in Asbury Park. And he's a writer, and we kind of met years later. And Ernie O'Donnell and him are in midst of producing a film. A working title right now is called The Moth, and it's like Terrifier-esque, kind of like a terror film. Edgy, crazy. The pages are scary. I've had to read it kind of several times to have like this vision and go. And every single time I read something, there's an element of, there's a craziness in there that I want to explore. So, and that's in the works still. So that's what I'm looking at, you know, and that's what I'm focusing on. And it's a constant for us, you know, like this is always the game, you know, like a director of photography or DP and writers, you know, we're always in the hunt. The creative process is necessary, and hopefully you get to a point where that creative process is at a level where you could consistently live on it.
Yeah. Excellent.
You know,
I love it. You know, hearing about your career, it's amazing. Hear about the energy, and, you know, you realize the art factor, because I guess in being in healthcare, we're very factual. Right. We go by reports. We go by this, you know, again, there's a lot of feel to what we do and we're working on it. But at the end of the day, we go with black and white. And you discussing it in a matter of energy to me is enlightening, because it brings a lot to the audience, because it's a feel. It's an energy. It's, you know, it's a presentation that you get and you deliver.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you turn those words into a powerful performance, that entertainment gives people joy, fear, excitement, emotions. Yeah. You bring their emotions alive with your craft. And to me, that's something that's just absolutely awesome. So,
and with your, appreciate you, man. Thank you. And I would like to think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it is black and white. There is a very, very black and white and like concrete form of running your own business, which is being on top of your fucking books. Like you're on top of your books, right? But as an actor, I think that you try to make that a smaller part, and you focus more on, let's just say, feel how the presentation is. I would imagine for a doctor, it's that presentation and that care for patients. My mom is a nurse, and I always used to think about it like this: like, good people in medicine understand that it's a vocation. It's like a job. And in a way, I consider them kind of artists and behavioralists, because they have empathy and they have an understanding for what the patient is feeling, and they're treating them to fix that.
1000%.
And if you don't have a fucking connection to that when you're treating people,
you struggle.
You're not a good doctor. You're not a good nurse. I would imagine. You know, I had dreams of that because of my knee injuries. I thought I wanted to be like a chiropractor, like I said before. And I was like, man, I wonder if I can be an orthopedic surgeon. That'd be a badass. Like, that's a badass position, bro.
Yeah.
You fix people. You fix athletes. You fix them. You give them better. You know, you give them that second chance after they derail because of this reason. You know, like very, very powerful. I had one for a long time, and I came across a new one after my loyalty kind of kept me. His last name was Zambetti. And currently I'm working with a doctor named Ryan Plyler, and he's like kind of like a more modern but just wizard, man. He's keeping me whole and keeping me kind of like mobile and moving, and he's helping me out a lot. I find it to be one of the most fascinating fields in the medical world. That and brain surgeons, obviously, but more. I have a strong kinship with orthopedic surgeons.
Yeah, without doubt. You've been under their knives
a few times.
I think the big thing is regardless of the path of medicine, you have to be able to connect with the patient.
Yeah.
And when you're in our storyline, it's first understanding what's going on. Then it's being relatable. Then it's giving an actionable plan. And then it's delivering the plan and executing.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful consultation yesterday with a young man that had a fracture on the 1 foot, elite runner, local high school. I think he runs at Christian Brothers. And they just cleared him. And as soon as they cleared him, he was out running in a state championship meet, and he shattered the other leg while running. And the parents, they got all their diagnoses, and they hadn't met. And I always said, the doctor that I want to, embrace the personality, if I was in a role, would be like Patch Adams, right? I've fractured my skull. I fractured my spine. I've tore my ACL. I had my knee rebuilt. I had stomach surgery. Oh, and I was paralyzed. And when I talk to the kids and they're like looking at you, and, at 51, I keep myself in good shape. I just won this bodybuilding competition. I've trained pro athletes. And the one thing is that what I was sharing with them is you got to have a plan from here.
Yeah.
Because the life that you had right now just stopped, right? And I always try to tell parents, they're like, look, at this age, they have probably their school, their friends, their sport, their cell phone, and their video games. There's not much else. Like, those are like really 4 important things. You take their sport out of it, which is like their fun, their connection, their camaraderie, their friends, their bonds, their coaches, their mentors, their role models, they can get really depressed really quick.
Yeah.
And I watched the mom was like, we're going to treat with you, because they were blown away when I was showing them. I showed them the poster I was telling you about with Coach K. When I was paralyzed, they called up, and, Coach K didn't have to take the time to call my house. I mean, I was nobody to them on their radar. And, sent me a beautiful poster, during their championship season with, I think, Grant Hill, Thomas Hill,
God,
Bobby Hurley, who owned the house at the top of the street here.
Yeah.
And, and probably my favorite, because of his moxie and how nasty he was Christian Leitner.
Yeah.
And, it was funny because, the mom was like, the best part about this visit is you created the after picture. And I said, there's only one way. We all have a role in healthcare, whether it's the orthopedic to deliver the corrective procedure, the rehabilitative process to deliver the strength and restore function, or the science-based doctor that's going to accelerate healing and do these things, but we all have a role. Our job is to make that role come to life. And when we can do that in a positive manner, it is amazing how those children just are like, they walked out, and it was cute because he literally said this is exactly what I imagined it to be.
I like to think of it as, I agree with everything, like I do. You get to, that's a powerful thing as a human being, to be able to influence great change in people and like help them out, motivate them. It does have, like, it's more healing. It's like the most healing thing you can do. Like, you're paying homage to your humanity, and you're getting better by making someone else better. That's a perfect exchange, from a standpoint of humanity. But when you're talking about kids, one of the keys for me is, I think that there's a level when you start experiencing some failures and shortcomings, and you're something like a knee injury. And I remember, my God, my daughter broke her metatarsal one time. And it just, and she resiliently like jumped back. You know what I mean? There are like traumas and situations that happen early on that kids should live through so that they can get better. And to that kid, I think I would imagine I went through we have a reference because we lived through some of those experiences too. It's a big challenge. It brings them to like a halt, and then now you have all these distractions, and they could jump into that or whatever. But in general, what I'm saying is when it happens early in your life, the chances of that trauma being designed organically so that you can come out of it is key.
It's a life lesson.
It's right. Because if you shelter someone from doing that, let's say the little moment of humiliation in kindergarten when people laughed at you because your jeans were fucking ripped or something.
Yeah.
It's traumatizing to a boy or a girl.
You remember it. Yeah.
And the only thing you do at that age, because that's little shit. It's really not a big deal.
You cry.
You cry. And you get fucking past that. And then your dad and mom tell you about, don't worry about it. They laugh at you today. Whatever the case is, they're survivable. Those moments and those traumas are survivable to a certain extent. You shelter someone from ever having to do that, or because your money or your status.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah, everybody gets a trophy. Whatever the case, you can paint it in whatever one of these, acronyms, I guess, or associate whatever one of these experiences, which mean exactly that. They get to be 23 years old, and it's like, because then I remember how painful 23 was. Painful.
Yeah.
Like, I still remember my 25th year on Earth. Like, that was a year where there was so many things happening. I was on my own for 4.5 years. I was in a serious relationship. I was getting older in the field I was in. I was reaching for something, wasn't quite coming. And, there's a fucking moment there where you just kind of have to, where was I? I lost my fucking train of thought. God damn it. Always happens.
You're good. It's powerful. You get it back right here. I'm ready to throw the clap. I'm throwing the theater clap.
Throw the clap, but I got to finish that point. What was the point? Anyway. Yeah,
you get to a point in making a decision, feeling kind of lost.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. You just refreshed it.
Yeah.
Had I not had, let's just say,
the ACL injury?
No. Those early, well, yes, but those early, embarrassing moments. I got humiliated in my first grade class because my father never cut my fucking sideburns. And they used to grow out like pork chops to here.
Yeah.
Dude, that was like 6 months of trauma. Everyone was gigging on my ass, bro, for like fucking all of first grade. And I would just come home. I swear to God, I must have come home crying a lot. My father would just sit there and go, "Hi. They do look kind of funny. You want me to cut them? I'll cut them. Or do you want to fucking be yourself?" And they'll get used to the fucking sideburns. I think they look great. No, I kind of want to cut them, man. Just cut him, please.
I like them too, but can we get rid of them?
Yeah, I appreciate the fucking lesson. Thank you, but yeah,
let's tighten them up.
Let's take them off, please. You don't have that. That's traumatizing.
Yeah.
And then when you get to 23, you have the love of your life. You think you're going to marry in 2 years. You got elevated to some position. You're making money, and she cheats on you, or you cheat on her. There's a major heartbreak. Derails your life. Your fucking job at the same time may demote you. Or maybe you got fired because the way you've cheated on your wife was fucking disgusting and people know about it.
Yeah.
Picture that guy not ever living anything, not ever suffering like a motherfucker before. And that's the first one?
No. Could be the last one.
Well,
yeah.
I think that a big part of understanding what mental health means is having a good understanding of what the trajectory of that mind has been, don't you think?
100%. How we react to adversity is usually exposure to adversity. And, that's a big thing. This is this podcast all about, right?
Thank you. That's great.
My relationship had came under attack. First, it was me, my mental health. And then, I branched into some decisions that were tumultuous, to say the least. And simultaneously, I was closing practices, closing locations. And, I tarnished my reputation. I tarnished my person, and wanted to rebuild that for me first, for my kids, for my wife, and regardless of how we landed, I wanted to say, hey, listen, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Right? And I think so many people would have probably walked away or quit. And, and when I had people ask, I'm like, brother, I woke up one day paralyzed.
Yeah.
I spent 12 weeks on a machine and couldn't walk. And they're like, why is that relevant? Because I got through it and I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
And it teaches you, but it's like, I love a guy, and you probably have heard him before, Berto Colon, or whatever, I always butcher his last name. He's a badass. And the one thing he always talks about is the brotherhood and the tribe, and the fact that these generations now, they're soft. They'll stay in their parents' basements of these big houses and live till they're 25, 26, 27, 28 years old, as opposed to when we were kids, we were out on our own. Like, I was out of the house at 18.
Yeah.
And, whether it was I was playing high school, college basketball and whatnot, but then when I was done, I was still out of the house. I didn't come back. And these kids aren't leaving, And so
it's a tug of war with that. Yeah. I find, just to keep it light, because this is a very heavy subject personally, it's, there's a presentation that you have to kind of go through because, again, some of the frailties and the emotional, the environment that these kids are in is sometimes really unfair to them. And again, we just be honest, there's a lack of that exposure to those failures early on, or there's a lack of maybe sometimes the right response to those failures by that child. And I'm not an expert, dude. I'm not trying to come out here and act like I fucking know everything. I just think it's important to recognize when you're dealing with that and these kids are getting to that point where where it's getting to them. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that they haven't been exposed to a lot of this shit before. And I think as a person, as a parent, whether you're a mentor, whether you're in a medical field or you're leading people and people are young, you have to lead them with always a stern and straightforward, honest approach. Yeah. And I hate to use this term, but it's not like you open a lane for like weakness to creep in. It's just you open a lane for an understanding and make that more of a conversation because there is deep emotional stuff.
100%.
That they are more exposed to and that we were not privy to because of the way the way that we were guided versus the way that they're being guided.
100%. It's different now. It's definitely different.
And so just a little room because we still know more. No, one of the first things you fucking heard when you got wise with your mom and your dad was like, you're going to try to fucking compete and you're going to try to compete intellectually with me. Let's do the numbers. You're 16 right now. In your whole world fucking life, 16 years of experience. Can you compare that to 43? Can you be at 39 years old and know what I know? I've lived twice as long. And I don't want to be arrogant about what I'm saying, but I just need to I need you to understand that there's the same way I'm opening up to understanding your perspective. Listen to mine and understand that the big difference is lived experience. Yeah. Which is an edge.
100%.
It's the way humanity has always fucking worked.
Yeah. Well,
children are not ruling the fucking world. You can't. You're not ready.
You haven't experienced enough, right?
You have to be guided and raised.
One of the things that I thought was pretty amazing, with regards to so many of the celebrity figures and even yourself, is I think that what is thespian is acting, right?
Thespian is,
you guys, I give a huge amount of credit and respect for, because you have the ability to see the perspective of so many. Yeah. And I think it's in the roles you play. And I think that when people do it right, meaning you guys, you have such a huge and positive impact you can make on the world and humanity in whole, in its entirety, because you have the power of conviction in your words. Yeah. That tonality, and you can drive a point through. So I think your kids are a huge disadvantage because you can take that role, get that James Earl Jones voice of yours going.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. I like that. I think it's delivery, right? Those are all the elements of how actors have that influential power. There's a delivery and the cadence, and there's a speech pattern and a calmness, and there's all this behavioral things that happen with actors. And while they're living in their real lives, they're conveying those messages using the instrument. Yeah. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's their tool. And so, it should come through. I mean, it's valuable. Good orators, great professors, like good public speakers. They have that
communicators. Yeah.
They invoke and they kind of they make you feel by telling a story, and you relate because they deliver it incredibly well, or they're well spoken or incredibly intelligent, and all of that is firing. So why not, right? If we can leave the whole celebrity thing carefully guarded, which is sometimes what happens, I think the essence of that's what the great ones all have. It's like they're always.
If there was one powerful quote on a closing note today, one powerful quote to live by, that would you say, or even just your go-to, what would it be?
Man, so I have it on my email signature, so I might be paraphrasing here, but Essentially, life is a collection of habits, right? I think that's a quote, and that applies to the work, applies to what you got to do. But it's like you got to make good habits to be a good actor, and you got to make good habits so that they become practice as a person.
I like that.
You know what I mean? Like it's a collection of all those habits consistently kind of improving upon themselves. And for you, it seems like you're just practicing all the time.
Repetition.
100%.
Love it.
So yeah, I paraphrased it. I should have it probably sharper. Maybe we touched on that in the next one, and I'll say it on the next one in a more powerful way.
Might even be what we call it.
Like the exact fucking quote, so I don't have to beat around the fucking bush.
We love it. All right, guys, listen. I can't say enough about, enjoying the podcast today with Berto Colon. A tremendous person, incredible actor, friend, and looking forward to cutting some workouts with him soon.
Yeah.
And we have a podcast coming up actually to be named at a later date. We're going to be doing a fundraiser that we both agree upon at a local restaurant. And it's going to be a banger. So we're looking forward to sharing that. Thank you so much for joining us again. Like, share, and spread the word about Tough Love Podcast. And thank you so much, and God bless. We'll see you again soon.